The opening line of Pilgrim's Progress is one of the most famous opening lines in all of literature. As I walked through the wilderness of this world, I lighted on a certain place where was a den, and I laid me down in that place to sleep, and, as I slept, I dreamed a dream. The rest of the opening paragraph completes our introduction to the overall framework for the book, a framework known as the dream vision. We also note that at first, the fictional framework is narrated in the first person. This is largely dropped when the first-person narrator proceeds to tell the story of the pilgrim named Christian from the third-person point of view, but occasionally we return to the narrator with such formulas as, "Then I saw in my dream." The main spring of the opening episode is that the protagonist is reading a book and is greatly disturbed by what he reads. In his distress, a man named Evangelist comes toward him, who points to a distant gate and urges Christian to proceed to it for help. Christian follows this advice and flees from his hometown called the City of Destruction. On the way, Christian meets characters named Obstinate and Pliable, who try to dissuade him from going forward with his journey, and a character named Help, who advises Christian on how to extricate himself from a life-threatening slough of despond, a bog, on the outskirts of town. Other characters whom Christian needs to fend off are named Mr. Worldly Wiseman and Mr. Legality. Evangelist comes to Christian's aid and counteracts the bad advice of that villainous pair, finally encouraging Christian one more time to proceed to the gate that will provide escape from destruction. Commentary. The complexity of Pilgrim's Progress, despite its surface simplicity, is visited on us from the very start. This complexity lies in the fact that every physical detail, including characters and places, has a symbolic meaning that we need to decipher. Anything approaching fullness of interpretation is beyond the scope of this guide, and this is in every way a good thing, because it activates readers of Bunyan's book and of this guide to complete the task of interpretation on their own, or in small groups. The autobiographical opening paragraph illustrates the technique of allegory or symbolism. The den where the narrator falls asleep is the jail in which Bunyan was imprisoned for preaching without a license. The dream that he dreams is the imagined story that he is about to tell. The man clothed with rags, named Christian, is every man and every woman in the lost state. The book that makes Christian tremble is the Bible, with its doctrine of sin, and the burden on his back symbolizes the guilt and consciousness of sin. With the allegorical wheels now set in motion, we witness the response of anyone who comes under conviction of sin. The lost state is symbolized by Christian's hometown, which is called the City of Destruction, referring to the destiny of hell that lies ahead for anyone in an unregenerate or lost state. Evangelist is the preacher or religious instructor who informs Christian regarding what he must do to avoid the coming destruction that awaits him in his lost condition. The gate that becomes the first goal in this quest story represents the entrance into the experience of forgiveness of sins. As is true in the early pages of any story that we read, we are feeling our way in the first chapter, gradually getting a picture of the ground rules that will govern the story as a whole. The entrance of the characters Obstinate and Pliable are our first hint that Christian's spiritual progress as he journeys onward will be impeded by characters who, if listened to, will sidetrack Christian from reaching the goal of his quest. Literary critics call these blocking characters, and in Pilgrim's Progress they are invested with subtle religious and moral meanings that require us to ponder them. Obstinate stubbornly refuses to acknowledge any need to leave the City of Destruction, and Pliable, although he initially accompanies Christian out of the town, at once loses commitment to the venture when he slips into the slough of despond at the end of town. One constant ingredient in the plot is thus characters who give Christian bad advice or in other ways try to hinder his spiritual progress.